Hey friends, I am Wanda and you are watching Happy Threads Girl channel. This is a channel that is for adult collectors age 13 and up, and this is about American Girl dolls, 18-inch dolls, and all things related to 18-inch dolls, storytelling, crafts, all of those good things. If you are new here, I am so glad you found your way to this cozy little corner of the internet. And if you're returning, you know we are going to talk all about everything 18-inch doll related. American Girl dolls, Maple Lee, our generation, anything to do with 18-inch dolls, from the crafts, the stories, and all of this stuff. So that's what we're celebrating today. Today, though, I am bringing you to the craft table. So this is where I do a lot of like larger crafts. So I'm sitting in an open area in my house, and I will sometimes set up a table out here and kind of conquer doing a lot of different crafts, and I will have the happy helper help from this area. So today I am going to be focusing on the crafts that I made from the travel book. So I know I talked about what crafts I was going to make, and I talked that I was already working on some, and some were already in progress when I made that video. And so I knew some were going to be a fail. So one of the things that honestly attracted me so much about this craft book, I'm sorry, the ring light is glaring there a little bit, is this cover where we have this little Eiffel Tower here. And so I so wanted to make this. So I'm going to open up the page here. Sorry, I should have had that already tabbed. But so here is the page where we talk about this craft. And here are the directions. So the directions are to buy two wooden V's and a wooden I, glue them together. I did do that. I didn't buy the right ones, so it was a fail on that. So they were more like 12-inch letters. They were flat. I tried my very, very best to get them to go together. They didn't work. And I just didn't want to keep buying letters and being unsure about them. And so then I did my own version of it, and it is a dismal failure. So just pause a second while I get that. Okay, so this is the Eiffel Tower I made. I can't even get the whole thing in the picture. I don't think it looks very Eiffel Towery. The only thing I kind of like about it is I did manage to get lights on it, so that's kind of cool. But anyway, it wasn't giving me Eiffel Tower, it was giving me Chrysler Building, and it just wasn't feeling right. And then when I was playing with the scale of it in the photographs, it wasn't working for me. So I do what I always do in times of desperation. I leaned into the Happy Helper. So the Happy Helper made this for me. So this looks like an Eiffel Tower to me. And when it's in scale with the picture, to get this type of imagery, I'll be able to kind of capture that a little bit better. What he did to make this, maybe somebody else could copy that, he just traced an image of the Eiffel Tower onto a piece of black foam board and then painted the edges. And then he took some of that mesh, because they do say to use the canvas mesh in the directions there. If you get this to work, I would love to see a picture of this version of it. Like, it just wasn't in my wheelhouse to get that to work. So, but this is the Eiffel Tower I made based on trying to capture this image. So in that, they also had some topiaries. So I did make some topiaries too. And for the topiaries, I bought these foam, oh my goodness, the foam shapes from Dollar Tree. And so I painted them green. You can see a little bit of the green in there. And then because I didn't want to I don't want to spend a lot of money on this. This is like just scenery for my dolls, right? But I wanted to have the kind of texture. And I thought about buying that moss stuff, but it's kind of pricey. And so I didn't want to do that. Plus I was afraid like it would get stinky or mildewy when I stored it away. So the Happy Helper said, why don't you use oregano? So I used some oregano and Mod Podge, and I glued the Mod Podge, I glued it on there, and I put a second coat on it. A little bit did fall off. It's just from these edges here, but I feel like it's gonna hold, like this part isn't falling off as I do that. So I feel like these little topiaries will hold up well. So that was Paris. So like that started this whole quest of trying to create these scenes. So I did do Paris. So, and then as I have said, I love London. There's nothing more than I love than London. So we have this little scene here. So I needed a phone booth. They suggested that using a cardboard box. I could not find a cardboard box for the life of me of that size. But then again, you know, we do have cardboard because we do tend to like hoard cardboard when it comes in, you know, that whole like, oh, is this a keeper box? You know, because we might use it for something else. We're that family. So Happy Helper suggested that we just use a big sheet of cardboard to create our own box. And so he created me an entire London box. So I think this is amazing. I will probably keep this for a long time, and it's probably going to actually be displayed in our living room. We have a shelf where we kind of like keep travel memorabilia. So this is going to become a fixture in my house now, but I do absolutely adore my little London phone booth. And Happy Helper created the phone. He looked up images of phone booths in the 60s, and he liked this silver with the green. He thought that contrast was pretty cool, and I do love it too. So do think it's really cute. If you don't have a Happy Helper, and this isn't a task that you would really want to do, and you don't have a box that's the dimensions that they're telling you, and I'll put those on the bottom, what those dimensions are for that box, and to cut this all out, I would suggest maybe just like as another option is get some red poster board. You'd need 2 sheets of it, and you could probably fold this up and make this. So I think that's an option for it. But yeah, so this is just cardboard that he scored and cut, and he made a base for it. He made like this little lid box. So like that could be what you could do is like buy one of those gift boxes of the right size, take your poster board and kind of glue that into that so you'd have a base and then up at the top. And then if you have the travel book, they do have the pattern for this top piece here. And I didn't want to use the stickers because I wanted to save them, photocopied them, and then stuck them on a little bit of plain foam board so they'd have some dimension there. But again, can I just tell you how much I absolutely love the phone booth? And so in there, they also had some image and some pictures in the, oh here, I'm sorry. I'm always so stuck for words. I struggle sometimes. But they have these little wrought iron gates, and I'm going to show you what we did for wrought iron gates. So wrought iron gates. So what I did there is I bought just one of those packets that have the like thin strips of balsa wood, and I just hot glued them together and painted them. Really nothing fancy. I had some of these like little wooden blocks that I used to create the base. So I, who have no carpentry skills, was able to make this on my own. I did not include the Happy Helper. I just had I had my trusty hot glue gun and some balsa wood sticks, and as you can see, I've already managed to break it, so I'm gonna have to hot glue this back on. But it's not super sturdy, but I think it's gonna serve the purpose in the pictures, and it's probably gonna be one of those projects that I'm probably gonna have to junk at the end of it or store away very carefully. I did also make a giant gate type thing to go with that. So I have this giant gate, and all this again is that balsa wood. And then I had beads around the house, and I took some beads and I glued them on there for dimension. So that was a suggestion from Happy Helper. So, but anyway, so I have this giant gate, and I have those little wooden gates for that. And then because in that same imagery, they had like a castle in the background, and so I'm like, oh gosh, I want to have that little piece. So the next thing I did is, we use this a lot in my scene building, and I'm going to show you what it is. It is, put this piece back here to show you. It is the insulation, and you can buy this in sheets at home improvement stores, you know, Lowe's and Home Depot. You can buy that there. And it is the easiest thing in the world to use. I have, like I say, 0 carpentry skills, and you can cut it with an X-Acto knife. And once you score it and you get a nice straight line, you can break it and it breaks nice and straight, or you can cut it where it'll have the rough edge. So I'm going to show you the castle side that I made. So I made this little like diorama for them to stand in, or for it to be in the background. So it is, this side is my castle, and you can see where it has some of the dimension there. That is the where I cut it rough, so it would have that. And then I created the little lantern here, and that is one of those Dollar Tree lanterns. I think it was more than $1. I think it was like one of those like $3 things, but it was so cute. but I had this side of it and I thought, okay, well, what can I do on the other side? So I flipped it around to give more of the, so it could be Spain or it could be Mexico. Like, I feel like this is kind of more that ancient ruin side. So I have two sides of this little diorama that I can use for scenes. So I'm super happy with this. Actually, I'm very happy because I made this one completely by myself. The Happy Helper didn't help with any of this. So I was very excited. Like, you know, I have the dimension of the castle up here. I have the little bricks here. I have these little side pieces here. I don't know, I'm pretty impressed. But then I love both sides equally. So you're gonna have to tell me what side you think is cuter, or if you're like me, they're both cute and you can't wait to see photos of them. So that kind of wrapped up everything I did for London. Oh, one more thing I did for London, but it's not just for London because I feel like this piece is like something I'll probably keep up more often. I made a street lamp. So here is the street lamp. I just kind of felt like I needed that. So it's that same lantern type thing that I bought from Dollar Tree, but it only had like 3 measly little poles. And so that would have only made it this high, and that wasn't acceptable. So I stole some of the other poles, and then I created this little foundation for it. And all this is a piece of wood with another piece of wood, some styrofoam that I stuck the stake part of it into, and then put the poles together so that I have a little lamp post. So, and these are solar powered so that there's lights in them, but you could take them out. Here, I'll show you here. So you could take those out if I just wanted to make it like not with those little solar lights in there. I'm excited about how this is going to look in pictures. Not positive it's going to look great, but you know, I'm willing to give it a try. So I have that. So that kind of wrapped up everything for London that I made. Oh wait, I lied. I made post. I made these like little posts, and these again are out of that styrofoam. So nothing fancy, just gray paint, and then I just hot glued pieces of them together to make that stone texture. So that'll help complete that London image. So I have Paris with the topiaries, I have London, and then the other part in the book was they had this very cute Leaning Tower of Pisa. Oh yeah, here's the Tower of Pisa. So they had the Tower of Pisa, and I thought that was cute. And I thought, oh, I can make that. So that one I knew I was going to be able to make. I carried it out a little bit differently when they suggested it. They suggested that you buy 8 of the smaller ones, but I just thought that this bigger pack would be cuter. So I bought the paper mache boxes. I bought two of them. There was like one that was like, had 4 in it. They were of bigger sizes. I guess they had 3, sorry. Each box had a set of 3 in them. So anyway, so this was the smallest of the big set, and then this is the biggest of the small set. So then I just painted them white and then used some gray to kind of do that imagery there. So I think this will look cute in the background pictures. So, and then it's gonna be nice because it'll all store in together. It'll all store into one, and you know, I can stack it into one, and it'll store easy. So I love that because as much as I love big scenery images or big scenery pieces, there's limited space. So we have that. So that's the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And then they had a fence in there. And one second. Okay, back. This is the fence they kind of have, like I don't know, a more solid fence. And so I made the solid fence. And again, that's just the styrofoam. And then this is what it looks like on the back where I kind of was messing around with it. So it's that pink styrofoam insulation thing that you can buy. And then, like I said, it's very easy to work with. I just painted it up, and so that I have that. So I have this piece and I have another longer piece. I'm not sure which piece I'm using totally in there, but I needed all those fences in my mind right now. I have not set up any of these scenes, so I'm not sure how much of it's making into the scenes. So, and then, you know, I talked about the Netherlands, and as always, I get emotional here. So anyway, here is what they have for the little Netherlands scene. So they have, where they used a flower pot to make the windmill and some cheese. And I did make the cheese. So here's my little cheeses. And I had some of this air dry clay. I had like, I don't know, some sample, like, I don't know. I bought something on clearance that had a bunch of air dry clay in it. So I was able to make a bunch of little cheeses to use to stack up with it. And so that was like, this is part of my, I have this huge bucket of, we call it the bucket of craft. Anyway, so I was able to get some of the stuff out of the bucket of craft. And I made a windmill. I used the larger 2 buckets to make the windmill, and this is just put together through like the bucket. Oh, and this fell off. So we're gonna have to glue this back on or come up with a better system. I might come up with a better system for this. So I'm definitely coming up with a better system. I just thought of the idea. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put like a screw here and then just screw it in. That's what I'm gonna do. So anyway, that's a project that I'm gonna need Happy Helper with. So we have the windmill. There's a door there. So that'll look great in the background, I feel like. And then I showed you cheeses. Oh, and then this is super cute. I made little fences because I wanted to have like the flower scenery there, and like it's reversible, so I can have it this way or I can have it this way. And I made 4 of these little fences, and those are just those little wooden fence things that you can buy over in the dollhouse area. And then some of that same insulation that I painted brown and green, and then glued some flowers on there. So that concludes all the crafts I made made from ideas from the travel book. So I didn't follow any of them really closely. I did, and then for the flowers, all I did is I bought some of those like artificial plants and used those. So, and then this is that artificial grass I've talked about that I've used in the past. So that's it. That's where I'm at with it. And then, oh, I don't know if I told you on the windmill. I'm so sorry. I'm so scattered sometimes. This is that plastic canvas stuff that you can use. And I had lots of pieces of those left around the house. So, and these are bamboo sticks. So I feel like the windmill is something that you could probably make on your own, even if you're untalented like me, or if you're more talented, then you definitely will probably be able to do a much better job. Okay, so I thought I was done filming the crafts, but I remembered that I wanted to make the hat from the Netherlands section. So this next section will have me working on the craft. We're gonna craft together from the travel book, and so the craft I chose to do with you guys is the little hat. I thought it's an easy craft. To be honest, I've kind of tried it ahead of time so I knew what I was doing, so I don't look as incompetent as I often can. So the first step is to get a piece of the 8.5 by 11 felt. So I'm going to tell you the directions do not work. If you're just following those directions, you are going to need an additional 2 items, and that is going to be, well, additional 3, because you need a sharp needle with a thread on it, and a pair of scissors. So other than that, the directions do work. So fold it in half. And then once you got it folded in half, you're going to fold in the 2 corners. You're going to fold it again so that these 2 corners meet up in the middle there. So you have the little triangle like that. So what I'm going to do, because it's not going to stay, because if I let go, it all just falls apart. So I am going to go ahead and put a little stitch down here at the bottom. So right in here, I'm going to put a little stitch. I'm going to do it from the underside so the knot doesn't show.
Just one little stitch to do it. Alright, so one
little stitch there. And then put this down here. And so now I have this. So then it wants these little corners folded, these little flaps, the little flaps folded up. So I have it like this. And again, I'm just going to put a little stitch because these will not stay without something holding them in. So I don't know if any of you ever made these little tricorn hats out of newspaper. I mean, newspaper is so rare to find anymore. I think it's probably not something that kids nowadays will actually grow up making. But when I was a child, back in the ancient days, I feel like some days when I say things. But anyway, so back when I was a kid, you know, newspapers were plentiful. And oh my goodness, I have to wet my finger here a little bit. Anyway, back to the story. So when I was a kid, newspapers were plentiful and everywhere. So we made lots of crafts with them. Now, I don't know what they do for newspaper now for crafts. Because goodness, as a child, every school project seemed to involve some kind of newspaper. So if you are younger than me and you know what they use for newspaper, or maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you're a parent and you know what they use. I would be interested to know. So maybe you could leave a comment in there of what do they use in place of newspaper for craft supplies nowadays. So anyway, so we have that other stitch. We have a stitch on that side, and we're going to need to put a stitch over here on this side here. So once again, so I have one little stitch. You can see the stitch on this side that I put in, and then I'm going to put a stitch over here. So I know that a lot of people aren't even really aware of how to use a needle and thread, and that kind of makes me sad, because I will say I was very, 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 very lucky that I had a very talented mother and a very talented grandmother who made sure that that we all, my sisters and I, all knew how to do our needlework. So for them, needlework included us knowing how to knit, sew, embroidery, and crochet. So I'm good at one of those things. I'm not bad at sewing. I shouldn't say I'm bad at sewing. Sewing is always a challenge for me. So I do like to sew, but I have to be in the right frame of mind. And I've discovered a love of embroidery as I've gotten older, but so that's worked. But I never really, oh my goodness, I cannot get a knot big enough. So I have to do the old spit tactic here. Sorry about me doing that, because I'm just not getting this to knot up, especially because this felt is super thin. All right, so now I think I got a decent sized knot. So anyway, back to my story here about my crafting abilities. So I was saying that I have a new love of embroidery. So embroidery has come to me a little bit later in life, but I'm getting better at that. It's just like everything else in life. The only way you get better is by doing lots of things wrong first. So I always feel encouraged when I do something wrong, because I'm like, oh, well, now I know that mistake not to make again. Once again, using a little bit of my spit to knot this up. Okay, so I've got the needle knotted again. So now I have a stitch on this side and a stitch on this side to make the hat. So the next thing they want you to do is to fold these corners in like this and this. And again, we're going to use a stitch. Sorry about that. So I'll get this next stitch in here. I'm just making quick little stitches because this isn't going to necessarily, I don't need it for hurricane winds. So I'll have that done real quick. So yeah, so like I was saying, I do like embroidery. And then of course I talk a lot about my love of knitting. So knitting is probably something that I don't even really think much about because I do it so much. I always knit when I watch TV. It's really difficult for me to kind of just sit still. I'm not a sit still kind of person. I'm always doing something. So if you're that kind of person, you could also leave a comment about that. If you, if you are one of those people who just can't sit still, I'd love to know what you do when you can't sit still. So I know lots of people are like that. I think most women I know are like that. But I also know my oldest child is male, and he is also a pretty busy person. He does not watch a lot of TV though, because he's too busy to watch TV. So anyway, but here we go. So now I got those corners tacked down. I'll show you that. So I have a corner here tacked down, and I have a corner there tacked down. So now we have the little hat. So now what it wants you to do is it wants you to fold these corners up here and here to make the little Dutch hat. So that's what we're going to do. Once again, we're going to take the needle and thread, and we're going to tack those down. So yeah, anyway, I do like embroidery. Probably, like, if I was going to pick another hobby that I really just liked besides doll collecting, I probably would pick, if I was going to pick a hobby besides doll collecting that I really enjoy right now is painting. So I do like to paint watercolors. I am so not good, but I do really, really like them. So I have dreams someday of, traveling around and doing a whole trip, not with photographs, but with all in watercolors. So that may come. I actually was talking to some friends, and we're kind of maybe planning a little girls trip, and I think that maybe the Yellowstone, which I think that could be really exciting to do, just a girls trip to Yellowstone. And I think it'd be fun to bring a sketchbook, and instead of taking photographs that whole trip, but to to do it all in watercolors. So I think that could be a really fun adventure. And I have really fun friends. I am so lucky. I talk a lot about my dowel friends that I've made here, but I also have friends that are non-dowel collectors, but also really fun and supportive of my dowel collecting. So they're just really creative people. And so I think creative people get this a little bit more than maybe people who aren't creative. I think that tends to be the issue, that if you're creative, you get how dowels are a creative outlet for you, for people. I think everybody I know that collects dowels uses them as a way of expressing some creativity, either in the displays that they're setting up or in the clothes that they do. So yeah, so dowels are definitely a nice creative outlet for many people. All right, so here I go. I have the completed hat. So it's super cute. Once again, how am I going to rate the directions? The directions are crummy, because if they're not telling you that you're going to need some way to hold these corners in and you're sitting there trying to fold it up, and it's a craft that I think maybe a kid might try on their own. And so like that would irritate me, that here this kid is trying to do this and then they'd be frustrated because they couldn't get their craft done. So boo for that. So anyway, I'm going to pause the video here, put this hat on a dowel, and I am going to go over all of my crafts that I have made and my opinion on whether the directions were great or not so great. Anyway. Okay, so here on the table is a display of all of the craft items that I was able to complete. And in this next section, I'm going to just kind of go over each scene I have set up. So hang on, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to take you a little bit on a tour of all the crafts as I have them set up. So I have the Leaning Tower of Pisa set up there, and with that in front of it I have one of the walls that I made. So I have that completed, and then we have a tree that I made a long time ago, the Eiffel Tower set up, and then that takes us over into the Netherlands, where I have the little cheeses set up on Our Generation or My Life marketplace thing. I don't remember where I got this. I think I bought it used, so I have that. And then the windmill that I made, along with the fences with the flowers. And then that leads us over into where I have it set up for London. And then with London, I have the light pole, the phone box, and then the castle thing. So this is kind of set up without any of the dolls or additional props in there. Okay, so here is another picture of the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the Eiffel Tower before I've added any dowels into it. So you can see, I feel like that has captured the book pretty well. I feel like I've managed to create the essence. So based on the fact that the Leaning Tower of Pisa was super easy, I feel like that craft is a 9. Very easy to do, and following the directions there are pretty basic there. So that was a good craft for me. And now we have a dowel in there. So I have my Barbie dressed in a Queen's Treasure dress. So she is being my little Italian tourist there. So I feel like this is captured the image very well there. Okay, next up I have the Eiffel Tower, and it's on its own without any of the dowels added into it. So again, I feel like this craft is an okay craft. I just am sad that I wasn't able to kind of complete that whole vision. I am really hoping somebody does and can show it to me, because I would love to see it in the completion. And it's also maybe a craft I'll revisit later on. And then this is the picture of Dwayne standing in front of the Eiffel Tower, kind of giving that presence of the dowel in there. And so I think this looks cute. Like I said, still very unhappy with the Eiffel Tower and how I was able to complete it. And then I did purchase Grace's Bistro accessories from Marketplace. I got a really good deal on those, so I was excited to have those as part of my collection. And I think it adds to the overall look of Paris. Okay, so this next picture is of the market setup with the cheeses that I made. And I did forget to mention in the previous topic about this is I did paint the little air dry cheeses with yellow paint. So that was the cheese on there. And then next up here is the total setup. So it does show the cheese with the windmill set up there and the little flower fences set up there. And there's a little glimpse of a bicycle in there because you can't have anything with the Netherlands without bikes in there. And then this last picture here is the doll with the little hat on that I created following the directions. And I think that turned out pretty well. So overall, I will say that I'm pretty happy with the Netherlands crafts. Okay, so in this London section, you can see where I put up the big gate that I made and the flowers, and then I used a fountain from My Life set and then added in the trash can here. But here is the set up with the phone booth and the light pole and then the castle in the background and those big gates there. I think overall I did achieve the look I was going for. I think it really did fill out nicely. And then I have a doll in here now for, to add a little bit more dimension so you can see the proportion to it. And I think overall I'm pretty pleased with how London came out. And for just these first test shots to kind of show what I was going for, I think I will say that London, I will call a success, maybe not the biggest of the fails. So I am pleased with it. I do have to do a big thank you as always to Happy Helper. Without his intervention and help with this part, I definitely wouldn't have been able to build a phone box to the quality that it is. So very happy with this and overall. Okay, so this last part here is just going to be a couple photos that I took outside of the dolls with some of the display pieces I made. Once again, as always, thank you so much for spending some time with me today as I went over my craft fails and successes. I do really appreciate all the support and encouragement that I continue to get from each of you. It inspires me to continue to do all of these videos, and I know this was probably not my best work, but I do have an excuse. I was traveling through part of this period of time as I was editing this video. One last thing though is if you could please comment, subscribe, share the video. All those things really help build the channel and help me continue to grow and inspire to do more. And my parting words, as always, are our lives are woven together with tiny threads, and each thread tells a story, and your story is worth telling. Bye for now. See you next week.